So my name is Rob Wagoner. I'm a partner technology strategist located in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've spent a lot of time with Microsoft Azure and the capabilities it can provide. So what I want to do is highlight some of those today, and depending on where we go as a group, I'm even happy to do a little bit of a demo. I'm going to gauge that off of you. So if you want a demo, you're welcome to IM me. And if there's enough feedback, I'll go through a couple things via demo. If not, we'll just kind of generally go and see where we go. All right, so Azure RemoteApp, what is it? What Azure RemoteApp lets us do is address a lot of these challenges. If we look at this bring your own device model that is coming all over the place, right? How many times has your customer said, hey, I just bought this new, pick your favorite consumer device. Would you please integrate this into my network? If I could ask everybody to mute themselves, please. There's probably a way for me to do it. But if you would mute your microphones, I would sure appreciate it, because even the background noise of shuffling papers can be disruptive. So as we talk about bring your own device, or if we have legacy applications, how do I give my users access to an application that, well, still requires, say, Windows 7 or, heaven forbid, even Windows XP? I hope by now you've mitigated that Windows XP dependency, but how do I keep my users moving forward in the new desktop capabilities, the new security we deliver in their desktops, and still give them some legacy access to the items they need? When we look at temporary workers or even vendors and new employees, how can we make that happen? So we'll talk through some of that in this discussion. So we have desktop virtualization, and it is a solution that has continued to progress as technology has progressed. So we have the capability of doing an on-premises delivery of our solutions, session-based computing, like remote desktop services. We also have the ability to do a VDI infrastructure on premises, VDI being Windows Client OS based, RDS, Remote Desktop Services, Windows Server based sessions. A lot of discussion we could do about, do around those two areas. Should I use Windows 7 or Windows 8, or should I use Server 2012 in a Remote Desktop Services environment? When we move into the public cloud, the VDI, or the Windows Client OS, is no longer an option because of the licensing around the client OSs. RDS is our only and best solution because it scales better. And so we have Remote Desktop Services in Infrastructure as a Service, and then we have our Azure RemoteApp. So when we look at Remote Desktop Services, Infrastructure as a Service, you can deploy that on premises on your hardware. RDS, we've done it forever. You can deploy RDS in Azure, and I've actually built out an RDS deployment in Azure all by hand, following our best practices, and it was really a great adventure to do once, right? Not something I want to do every day. But if I need highly customizable remote desktop experiences, that may be the way you need to do it. Build it yourself. But if what you're looking for is a turnkey solution that can scale without a large capital expense, Azure RemoteApp may be right for you, because Azure RemoteApp gives you a lot of capabilities around auto scale, around updating, even around integration into your existing infrastructure without you having to manage all the details of it. And so when we look at Azure RemoteApp, again, it gives us this Windows application experience with the RDS capabilities. Remote Desktop Services, RDS, was built to scale. For those that have been around a while, RDS is what we used to refer to as terminal services. It's been rebranded to Remote Desktop Services. Want to make sure we clarify that, right? So Remote Desktop Services is the new name for terminal services because we add such incredible new capabilities and scale to it. The terminal services, that just cracked the surface, right? So it gives us this ability to have true agility and Azure RemoteApp is a platform as a service play, which means you don't have to manage all the infrastructure. We will for you. So it can deliver these applications from the Azure platform. We deliver an SLA, and it can deliver these applications across Windows, iOS, macOS, and the Android devices. We leverage the remote desktop protocol and even the RemoteFX client capability to make most efficient use of the bandwidth in this content delivery. The thing I really love about Azure RemoteApp is the scale happens on our back end without your intervention. So when you build Azure RemoteApp, you can either leverage one of our existing standard applications, standard templates, or you can actually build your own template. Put your own applications in it, sysprep it, upload it to us, and then have us provision that, and again, manage it as infrastructure as a service. And of course, you can have this flexible hybrid or cloud deployment option. So not only can I have this Azure RemoteApp standalone experience, but I can fully integrate that into my existing on-premises infrastructure if I want. So with a site-to-site VPN connection, connecting your on-premises into your Azure RemoteApp infrastructure or even your Azure infrastructure, you can now integrate Azure RemoteApp pretty seamlessly into that environment. If you looked at Azure RemoteApp a while back, you saw that Azure RemoteApp had to have its own virtual network, and then you had to connect it to your Azure virtual network, and then that had to be connected to your on-premises. We've really simplified this. You can now actually deploy your Azure RemoteApp image directly into your Azure virtual network. So for all of you technical guys, yes, I just said that. So if you haven't seen that, it's pretty cool. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. But as we look at these options, we have two options, and I've already kind of alluded to them. The RemoteApp Cloud Deployment, which says, let me have this standard image, and we have a couple of them available already. Again, you can build your own. That is an independent instance, separate from, say, your on-premises directory services or even your Azure implementation. Or I can have this RemoteApp hybrid deployment, column on the right, where I can have my fully customizable OApp, my fully customizable apps, operating system settings, all of that you do yourself. You can build this template. Absolutely, Nick. We will get a copy of this presentation sent out. I should have posted it already, and I probably didn't. But yes, we will make that available. If you would mute your microphones, please, that would sure help us a lot. And the other thing I love about this RemoteApp hybrid is it gives us full access to my on-prem resources. So now I can have this Azure RemoteApp instance that actually can access my on-premises file servers or other application backends. And your users can log in with the corporate credentials federated through Azure Active Directory. So again, for our users, make a very seamless experience. Give them all of these applications delivered to you, delivered to your users, but again, as IT, not having to manage all of that day-to-day overhead, let us. Okay, so let me be clear on a few things. When I leverage Azure RemoteApp and you want to build your own template, your own image to upload, that image must be built on Server 2012 R2. So that's a given right there, okay? But we'll give you the ability to have this dynamic scalability and even global presence. So you can deploy this among many of our data centers if you need that application with the high fidelity of the RDP protocol. I'm really impressed with a lot of the work we've done around RDP to really enhance that as a great protocol for these kind of experiences. Rusty, you read my mind. So I have Ginny Hoban on the phone on the call as well, and Ginny took care of muting everybody, so hopefully we're in good shape there. But Rusty, thank you. As you could probably tell, I just got moved to the new Skype for Business client. So things have moved a little bit, but we're all working together, right? Okay, so as I look at cloud deployment in detail, this slide is really packed with a lot because it gives me a good overview of what I can accomplish here. As we look at the Azure RemoteApp, the cloud in blue, that's everything that can be delivered within Azure itself. I can let my users connect via RDP, via Android, Apple, Windows clients, all via RDP, and we have those clients, and I'll probably even show that to you in a little bit. But now you can connect to it. So the applications are all running in the Azure servers in the back end, and the user's just getting that user experience on their desktop. So as we go through that, the other thing I want to point out is each user gets persistent user data storage of 50 gig. So each user gets 50 gig worth of data storage. Jeremy, thank you so much. What is RDP? RDP is Remote Desktop Protocol. It is our protocol for remote desktop session control, RDP. I'm sorry I use that every day to manage servers, but that's basically how I can generate these remote sessions. The thing I like about Azure RemoteApp is I'm not creating a whole remote desktop. I'm just encapsulating an application in that experience. So this gives me the ability to have my normal applications and on the standard desktop and still bring in these other applications from this remote instance. So Elaine, is this the same as VDI? VDI, basically yes, but no. Don't you love those answers? Okay, so VDI, Virtual Desktop Interface, talks about primarily the client OS in a virtual machine being delivered one user per VM. Remote Desktop Services gives me multi-users per instance. So in Remote Desktop Services, terminal services, I can have 10 or 16 users around the remote app model per virtual machine instance. So I get more user density, less compute overhead to deliver those resources. So VDI primarily refers to Windows client OSs. RDS primarily refers to Windows Server OSs. What are the bandwidth requirements per session or app? Good afternoon, BJ. Bandwidth for this is not that significant. I don't have a good calculator for you, but the RDP protocol is something we've continued to optimize, and we do a lot of optimization. We'll actually measure your bandwidth to scale the fidelity. So if you don't have bandwidth for rich graphics, we'll actually scale that back for you. Okay, so here's the deployment detail. For customers, Eric, I'm going to answer yours, but I'm going to answer yours because yours is a good one. For customers who don't have federation, is there another way to set up authentication for Azure AD? Absolutely. Azure AD is its own authentication mechanism. So you could actually use that without federation. You can have a full hybrid managed or a full Azure-based managed environment. This hybrid deployment slide, I can use federated identities with Azure Active Directory and DirSync and even Azure Active Directory Federation services if I want. I could do hybrid with the site-to-site VPN so I could leverage my on-premises domain controllers, or I could actually just use an Azure-based Active Directory and have it completely independent to my on-premises Active Directory infrastructure. So what is the max estimated number of users per VM instance? Alexander, I saw your question. I'm going to come back to it in just a moment because I have a slide that will help with that. So we talked about this hybrid deployment. Tony Garcia, we'll get there, I promise, and I'll hang around to help with questions. 2 deployment options. It looks like I got, okay, patching. I do want to touch on this slide. So patching, when you create an image and hand it off to us for cloud deployment, we'll handle the patching for you. When you have a hybrid environment where you say you have a site-to-site VPN and you're authenticating against your Active Directory, you have to manage the patches to your Azure RemoteApp instances. And we have a documented way to do that. You would do your updates and then you would upload a new template. So yes, every month or so, however often you deploy patches, you would have to upload a new instance. But because we maintain user profile disks, you're not going to lose that data that the users generated, but it gives you the ability to manage your deployments there. Okay, quick features. A lot of these I hope will help with Q&A before we actually get there. Where is it available region-wise? It's available in most of the data centers, but not all yet. We have the virtual network capability. We also have the Azure Active Directory capability if you just want that. Office is in one of the standard templates, so if you already own an Office 365 subscription, you can actually leverage that, and it'll be one of your subscription instances. Azure RemoteApp has two pricing models, basic and standard. So a couple clarity items here. First, I like to be really transparent with things, so I try to give you the bad news now so you know, right? When we look at the basic instance, we put up to 16 users per VM in the basic instance. So in this remote desktop services, 16 users will be connected to that one VM. The VMs are delivered by an A3 sized virtual machine on Azure, which means it has 4 virtual cores and 7 gig of RAM. So in the basic instance, 16 people computing for 4 cores, 7 gig of RAM. When you go with the standard instance, we change the scaling from 16 users per instance to 10. So standard, you have more compute. Again, when we look at what are they designed for, basic is designed for lightweight applications. Standard's designed for knowledge workers, information workers that use productivity applications like Office. You could actually deploy Office applications in your basic instance, but again, if you have 12, 15 users on that one instance, performance may be poor. Now, one of the other things that sometimes is hard in SMB is we have a 20 user minimum billing number, which means if you set up Azure RemoteApp for 5 users, we're going to bill you for 20 per month. And that's a struggle. I totally understand that, but again, wanting to be clear. Our pricing and the way this works is under basic, it starts at $10 a month. Standard starts at $15. I always hate it when somebody says our pricing starts at. We also have a cap price. So what we do is for the basic, $10 per hour per user per month, and that includes 40 hours of runtime price. So in a month, if somebody uses the remote app less than 40 hours a month, it's $10 for that user per month. If they use more than 40 hours, we have an hourly rate of 17.5 cents. We cap it at $17 per user per month. So when I do costing around Azure RemoteApp, I just like to focus on the $17 per user per month and have you plan that way, and then cost savings are a pleasant surprise, right? So standard, it starts at $15 a month with a cap of 23. $23 per user is maximum, and again, keep in mind there's going to be a 20 user minimum pricing on this model.
So was there a question around this? Maximum cap $17 per user for basic, $23 for standard. And again, keep in mind, I want to emphasize this, you will be charged for 20 users minimum. So if you only have 5 users, all 20 get patched. So Edward, what's the ROI pitch to the customer? Great question. The ROI pitch is less management overhead for you because you build the image, you hand it off to us, we run it as platform as a service, we handle all the availability overhead for you. One of the great things with Azure is we have availability sets and auto scale capability. When you deploy Azure RemoteApp, some of the mechanics on the back end, 3 virtual machines actually get provisioned for this RDF deployment. 1 stays up. They're in an availability set, so if we have an outage, you have availability. We even provide an SLA with it. But as your demand increases, we'll spin more virtual machines up to deliver on that demand. This gives you the peace of mind of knowing it's going to auto-scale for you. And we handle all of that. Elaine asked, does this come with backup and recovery? No. One of the things about Azure is an a la carte service. It is absolutely only what you purchase. If you did not buy it, you don't get it. That's good and that's bad, but I want you to stay in that, keep that in your mind, okay? If you don't buy it, you don't get it. So if you want backup, you purchase that additionally. Now, one of the great things is, are you looking for backup in case Azure has a disk drive failure? We keep 3 instances of your data, so we've already mitigated that. If you need backup for historical purposes, then you need to deploy that on your own. Okay, so let me flip to a couple more slides here just to wrap this thing up. We talked about this pricing model where for standard it starts at $15 a month and it caps at $23 a month. And then that was the end of my slide. And with that, again, thank you for coming.